Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 1, Dragonstone. Let's do this. After a much longer than usual hiatus, we finally have our first episode. This season is going to be shorter. It is only going to last 7 full-length episodes as opposed to the traditional 10. However, thank God, we will be getting a 5-episode finale season fairly short after. So, Season 7, Episode 1 kicks off with a scene that felt very predictable. It started off, and within seconds I was able to deduce exactly what was going to happen. It was still a nice scene, but this predictability was just a sort of microcosm for the whole episode. This entire episode felt very mediocre, which is very surprising for a season premiere, especially in the wake of Season 6, Episode 10, which was one of the best episodes of television ever written. We got mediocrity from Jon Snow's story arc, we got mediocrity from Cersei's story arc, and we tragically got mediocrity from Daenerys' story arc. The episode ends with Daenerys finally arriving in Westeros after all of these years. This is a plot thread that they have been setting up since Season 1, Episode 1. It is one of the most important narrative drivers of the entire series. Yet, they made the decision to trade realism for epicness, and it did not pay off. This ending felt very melodramatic. And that is not something I wanted from Daenerys' arrival in Westeros. I don't even know what I'm doing here. What is this show? What am I doing? However, in the wake of so much mediocrity, we got 2 fantastic, perfect segments this episode. Samwell Tarly at the Citadel was one of the most comedically satisfying and narratively satisfying segments in the show in recent memory. Everything that I predicted about Sam's purpose in the narrative in the great game to come, everything I called is coming to fruition. I knew it. I'm a genius. So he is at the Citadel for a reason. He's not just there to just become a stupid character that everyone forgets about. He is there to help Jon defeat the White Walkers, and we now know how Jon is going to do so. And this also explains how Jon is going to cross paths with Daenerys in the narrative. We knew it was going to happen eventually, but it was something that was pretty vague. And we now know that he's going to cross Daenerys because Daenerys is at Dragonstone, the former Targaryen stronghold right off the east coast of Westeros. It was formerly commandeered by Stannis for most of the show, but now it's abandoned since his death. So we now know how Daenerys and Jon Snow are going to cross paths. Really satisfying. I didn't expect it this way. Okay. There is a deposit of dragon glass at Dragonstone, just as Stannis predicted. It's been confirmed now, and that is exactly where Jon Snow and Daenerys will cross paths in the narrative. But something really interesting that doesn't have to do with the War for the Dawn to come that occurred at the Citadel was Jorah's presence. I expected the showrunners to have written Jorah out of the narrative. I did not expect him to play any practical purpose in the final arc to come, unless some deep magic comes to fruition from some source. They are really not likely going to be able to treat Jorah, unfortunately. However, it was really cool to see him make a cameo, even if it was just a shadow where he shot his arm out like that. We see that the grayscale has tragically progressed immensely. Things are not looking well for Jorah. Unless they come up with a miraculous cure fast, what they haven't had for hundreds of years, by the way, he's going to succumb just as those monsters in the Runes of Valeria had succumbed themselves. But enough about the Samwell Tarly arc. Let's move on to the other fantastic segment of this episode, the Brotherhood Without Banners and the Hound segment. This scene was the most satisfying both on an emotional level and on a narrative level. We see the Hound, now accompanied by the Brotherhood Without Banners, return to the house where the family sheltered him and Arya in Season 4, and we find that the father and the daughter were tragically starved to death, and the Hound buries them. He just has a hard time believing in any gods. And when Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr try to convince him that the Red God, R'hllor, is real, he just spits in their face and virtually says, if he was real, there would have been justice here. I don't believe in divine justice. Look at this family, that innocent family that got killed. Then a chilling scene happens. Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr convince the Hound to look into the flames and see if he can see anything, just as most devout Red God worshippers have the ability to do. And this non-religious sort of Game of Thrones-y aspect of the show figure looks into the fireplace, and he is able to see Red God-induced visions. He is able to see the White Walkers marching on Eastwatch by the Sea, which I will get to in a minute, because that's stupid. We finally understand the Hound's greater purpose in the narrative. We understand why the showrunners decided to bring him back. It wasn't just petty fan service. He is going to be a part in the War for the Dawn to come, which is really, really exciting, especially since the Hound is such a well-written character. So obviously, with all the lore stuff and the War for the Dawn implications, that was my personal favorite part of the episode. However, there are still a couple more things to note. If the White Walkers enter Westeros through Eastwatch by the Sea, it's going to be nowhere near as satisfying as if they entered through Castle Black. You see, Castle Black is the area of the wall that we have come to familiarize with over the course of 7 whole seasons. Jon Snow, that's where he grew and developed as a character. Sam, that's where he developed as a character. All of the White Walker and Wildling storyline content took place in the vicinity of Castle Black. And they introduced this new location all the way on the other end of the wall by the East Coast, and have the White Walkers come in that way. It's going to be severely anticlimactic, so I'm really hoping the showrunners don't take that route, even though it would make more logical sense for them to do so. Euron Greyjoy visits Cersei and attempts to woo her. He doesn't care. He doesn't have any feelings for her. He's just doing it to get ahead in life, just as Euron Greyjoy does, because he's an asshole. Let's be real. Cersei is having none of it. She says, I don't believe you. You killed your brother to take the throne of the Iron Islands. How can I trust you? And he says, I will bring you back a gift that will make you trust me. Something like that. I don't know if it's that thing, but this was amazing because it means we are probably getting the Dragonbinder in the show. If you aren't familiar with the Dragonbinder is, I will probably do a separate video on that subject alone. However, a basic summary is that it is a horn that, if blown, gives one the ability to control dragons, regardless of who their commander is. Obviously, we know Daenerys is getting ready to use her dragons to conquer Westeros from Cersei, so if Euron were to give Cersei the Dragonbinder, this would make the odds a lot more in Cersei's favor. Something we did not expect. Cersei is going to become a lot more formidable in the wake of this war to come. And that is really, really cool. Because I thought she had it done for her. I still do. But I thought there was no chance. In the wake of 2 very strong segments, we still got an overall immensely mediocre episode, and especially if they're going to mediocritize the arrival of Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen in Westeros, it's inevitably disappointing. I'm still not going to say it's a bad episode. After all, there are no bad episodes of Game of Thrones. It's one of the best shows ever made. But I really don't think the showrunners can afford a mostly filler episode with only 12 full-length episodes left in the show. Overall, I was expecting a lot more, and I was fairly disappointed, but I still enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing how the implications this episode provides end up affecting the rest of the series to come. Not as much War for the Dawn stuff as I would have liked, nowhere near as much Bran stuff as I would have liked, but the Samwell and Brotherhood Without Banners segments were 10 out of 10. Rest of the episode, not good at all. That's going to be it for this week's review. If you like what you saw, smash that subscribe button and come back for more, because there's way more where this came from.